So Emily Vasquez requested that I do another cooking video and came up that maybe I should make some mac and cheese for you guys. And since that's my wife's favorite dinner ever, I said, sure, we can do that. That'll be nice and easy. So we're gonna make some mac and cheese. Here are the things you need. You need 2 saucepans. One can be small to medium, and that's gonna be for boiling your pasta. One that's gonna be a little bit larger, that's where we're gonna make our cheese sauce and then combine them all together. You need milk and flour and butter for your cheese sauce. You need salt and pepper to season everything. You need cheese. I'm using Tillamook medium cheddar. And you're gonna need as much cheese as you feel is appropriate. So some people want all of this cheese. If you need all of this cheese, hey, no judgment. You do you. I'm gonna use this much cheese and we're gonna grate it. I also have a little bit of extra cheese that I've cut into little cubes, which I'm going to put into the mac and cheese to make little pockets of cheese, because I think it will be delicious. Last thing you might need, you're probably going to need something to grate the cheese with. I have this little doodad here, and of course, you're going to need some pasta. So I'm using large shell pasta, which takes a little bit longer to cook, but it's really neat because then when it's cooked, it gives you like little pockets full of cheese sauce, which I think is amazing for mac and cheese. So there you go. All right, in part 2, you will see how we will get everything set to go and ready to go. Last thing I'm gonna do for this part is I'm going to salt my water for the pasta, and I'm gonna turn it on and get the water a-boiling. So here we go, salted water. Burner on, set to high. I'm going to cover this pot so it boils a little bit faster. You want to use plenty of salt for your water. Don't be shy on salting pasta water. It will still be great even if it's pretty salty. Alright, see you in part 2. Welcome back, Orchestra Cooking Gang. We're making mac and cheese here at the Jones residence. So I have right in front of you a pot of water that is almost ready to boil. So it's simmering right here, and I'm gonna leave it covered until it's really rapidly boiling. Like you gotta see lots and lots of bubbles. It's about halfway full of water, maybe a little bit more. You don't have to be exact with the water, just enough that it will cover your pasta. While that's boiling, I'm gonna use this fancy doohickey to grate some cheese. So I'm gonna affix this to the counter. There we go. Got a bowl, put that there. I'm gonna take my big old hunk of cheese. I'm just gonna put it right there. And start turning the handle. And the look is shooting out cheese. Don't you wish you had a magic device that just like dispensed cheese when you need it? That would be amazing. Oh, bowl's too full. I'm gonna turn it to the other side. So I'm gonna protect the fingers, because I need those in order to play and in order to teach. I'm gonna use this plastic thingamajig in order to push the last of the cheese down and get all the cheese out. Perfect, there we go. All right, get the last little bit of cheese. If you have a little bit of cheese like this, it makes a delicious snack. And if you're lucky enough to have a camera person, you can share it with the camera person. Cheese. All the last cheese out of here. Now I'm making enough. This is enough for like a good dinner portion for 2 people. If it was a side dish, you could probably serve a family of 4, maybe even 5. If it's like one of you hungry teenagers, like you guys could probably eat all of this in one go. I've got like a pretty good bowl of cheese. And if it's too much cheese, I'll just keep it and make more on another night. All right, sounds like the pasta is up. So the pasta water is ready to boil. Let's take a look. Oh yeah, look at that. See how it's boiling really nice and rapidly? So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn the heat down just enough so that I don't burn my hands by having them near the flame. I'm gonna pour in my shells here. And if you really want to measure and figure out exactly, about 75 to 100 grams of shells is a good portion for one person. So since I'm making it for this too, I think I'm making about 200 grams. That's probably enough for my wife and I for dinner tonight, and maybe a little more for lunch tomorrow. And then I'm going to grab a fork, and right as soon as the pasta's in there, you want to give it a quick little wing jangle. Get it mixed up. That way the pasta won't stick to itself there. And that's it. And now I'm going to leave this alone, and it's going to come back to a vigorous boil there. Remember, we salted that a little bit earlier, so the water is really quite salty. All right, now, while that's boiling, I'm going to set a timer because I'm going to check on that in about 8 minutes. This will probably take between 8 and 12 minutes to actually cook, but at 8 minutes, I want to test it with a fork and see if it's done. Okay, while we're doing that, we're going to make our cheese sauce. And this is going to start with a French technique called Bechamel. So Bechamel is a type of sauce. It looks like white gravy. So if you've had biscuits and gravy, it's very similar to that. And it's one of the best ways to make mac and cheese. It's super delicious. It's super easy. So we're going to go for it. All right, this is trying to boil over. Bring that down just a little bit. All right, I'm going to grab a whisk because I'm going to need a whisk. I've got butter and flour and milk. And then I'll put a little bit of salt and pepper in the bechamel sauce at the appropriate time. Okay, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to take some butter. You don't need to measure this super carefully. For the two of us, I want maybe about a tablespoon of butter, but you see, like, good old glob like that. I'm going to put it into the bottom of this pan. Now I'm going to turn the heat up on this pan to medium low. Not super hot. We just want to slowly melt the butter without burning it. I'm going to start getting this butter melted here. And while that butter is starting to melt, I'm going to get some all-purpose flour. And I'm going to put an equal amount to the butter that I put in the pan. The same amount. That's how much we want. So this is probably going to be like a good heaping tablespoon like that. It's right on top of the butter. No problem. As I'm looking at it, I'm thinking I want just a little bit more flour because I got a lot of cheese to get in there. I'm going to go back and I'm going to add just a hair more butter. They used to say that my family crest should have been 2 cross sticks of butter, and that our family motto should have been, we need more butter, because we usually do. All right, so I've got butter melting. Swirl that around a little bit. There's a little bit of flour in there. We're just going to wait until that's melted and before we do anything else on that. Perfect. So while we're waiting for that butter to melt a little bit more and we can start whisking it, I heard a good one today. Do you guys know what is red and really bad for your teeth? A brick. Hey, I thought it was funny. All right, butter's melting. So now that it's partially melted, I'm going to turn the heat down to like fairly low. I'm going to grab my whisk. Just going to gently whisk everything until it's nice and combined. And what we're doing is something called making a roux. And this is another French term. R-O-U-X, pronounced roux. As in you will rue the day when you make terrible, terrible jokes like me in front of your spouse. As I'm looking at that, I think it wants just a hair more butter, so I'm going to add a little bit more. It's okay, you don't have to be super precise with this. This is a really forgiving recipe. As long as you keep the heat low while you're making your roux, then it's really easy. All right, so I'm going to stir that in there. Now, if you look at that, you notice that the flour is already starting to brown a little bit and you're getting a little bit of bubbles. So you want just a little bit of bubbles, and it doesn't have to get super dark brown, but a little bit light brown, kind of like sandy blonde hair color. Just like that. Cool. Now that I've got the roux just about the color I want, and it stopped to smell a little bit different, so it doesn't smell like raw flour now. Now it just smells like a little bit of cooked flour. Now I'm going to go over here and I'm going to get milk. So what I'm going to do is pour in maybe about half a cup of milk. I'm going to turn the heat up a little more and let it sit for a second. I want to get the bottom of the pan hot. We're going to put this milk in there. And as soon as I pour some milk in, then I'm going to start stirring with a whisk and I'm going to try and combine it. You'll see it'll look really smooth for a minute and then it's going to seize up and look kind of clumpy. And that's okay. That's what we want. All right, see those bubbles there? That means we're probably hot enough on the bottom of the pan. So here we go. I'm gonna add some milk. Hear that sizzle? That's good. That means the pan's hot enough, but not too hot. All right, now I'm gonna whisk this up. This is where you want to be pretty vigorous and get all the sides, everything around the side. Get it mixed in, whisk it a lot. Got the heat up to about medium right now. And see, it looks really nice and smooth. And in just a second, it's going to start to seize up. Oh, there we go. See that? See, now you can see the bottom of the pan as it's thickening up. And we're going to let this get really quite thick. Oh, that's seasoned up. I'm going to add a little bit more milk. Got to open some more milk. There we go. Okay, more milk. Got that ready. So look at that. See how that's starting to thicken up a lot? We want that really quite thick for the first one. We're going to do this 1 to 2 more times. Add a little bit more milk to thin it out. Now I'm going to turn that heat up a little more. Add a little bit more milk. It's maybe another like 1/4 cup or so. Again, you can kind of eyeball this. You don't have to be super precise. Stir that up again. And this is where we're making bechamel sauce. So we made the roux with butter and flour. Now we're mixing the milk in. And the proteins in the milk are combining with the gluten in the flour in order to make this thicker sauce. It's going to be really rich and delicious and fantastic. And the butter prevents the sauce from actually becoming too gloopy and too sticky and like a gross mess. That's what's going to make our cheese sauce really smooth and amazing. Okay, see how that's seizing up again? So we're getting a little bit more. You can see the bottom of the pan. So we're going to go 1 more round of milk. That's going to push this even a little bit more. There we go. Okay. I'm going to add a little bit more milk. Just like that. Again, I'm going to stir it and I'm going to keep whisking it. You want to keep whisking it so it stays really smooth. Get all the edges of the pan so you don't leave any of that good flour and butter stuff behind. That roux is where the flavor is. And this time, when it gets closer to seasoning up, I'm going to turn the heat down. I'm going to add some salt and pepper to season it. And then we're going to start folding in some cheese. All right, let's get in there. Let's get in there. Yeah, there we go. Now I can start to see the bottom of the pan. So again, I'm going to turn that way down as low as it can go for just a minute or two. I'm going to add a little bit of salt. So I'm just using coarse kosher salt right here, but you can use table salt. That's fine. Not too much on this because the cheese is salty. Oh, you hear that? That's the timer for our pasta. So I'm going to check my pasta, give another quick little wang jangle around. I can feel already that the pasta is a little bit stiff, right? So I said this is going to take about 8 to 12 minutes, and when I pull it out, it's hard for the fork to push through. You want it to be able to push through with just a little bit of effort, not too much, just enough where you can go, oh, got through there. But this is taking quite a bit of effort, so that's probably going to take another 3, maybe even 4 minutes. So I'm going to set this timer again for 3 minutes. We'll check that again. All right, give this one more stir. Now I said we needed salt and pepper. So we got some pepper. Get some freshly ground pepper in there. It'll be delicious. Give that a mix around. All right, now this is warm but not super hot, which is perfect for adding our cheese. So I'm going to take our ground cheese from before. I'm going to add it not all at once, but just like a little bit at a time. So a little handful. Put that in there. And then sort of slowly whisk that around a little bit. And it's going to start to melt in there. And at first it's going to look like it's making some lumps. And that's okay. As it melts, it will smooth out a little bit more. So another good handful. Gonna wiggle it just a little bit, separate that cheese. Get some more going. Yeah, you can see this is starting to thicken the sauce even a little bit more. See how it's got a little bit like that? And at this point, if I wanted to put it on nachos, it would be great. It's the perfect consistency for that. But I want mac and cheese, so I want it a little bit thicker. Put a little more cheese in. There we go. We go one, maybe two more rounds on this. Like I said, if there's a little bit of extra cheese, no worries. You can put in as much as you like. If you like it not quite as cheesy, you know, you do you. Always whisking, waiting for the last batch to become almost completely melted before I add any more. All right, I think one more little one, because you can see this is already starting to be a lot thicker, right? That's going to be perfect. All right, that should probably do it there. Yeah, now we're talking. Okay, so I've got this, and I have the heat all the way down to low while I'm doing this. All right, and if your pasta's not quite ready, you can cook your pasta a little bit longer and keep this either on really low or turn the burner off and wait for this to finish cooking. This will come out really hot, and we can use that to heat the cheese back up if we need to. All right, while I'm waiting for the pasta, I'm just going to give this a quick little taste. Check for seasoning. If it's not flavorful enough, you might need to add salt or pepper. It's pretty good, but I think it wants just a hair more salt. I'm going to put a little bit more in. And probably another crack or two of pepper here. There we go. Alright, let's check the pasta again. Let's see how that's doing. Oh yeah, I can feel it's already a lot softer. Oh, that's perfect. So this is what we call very slightly al dente, which is to the tooth. It's an Italian word meaning there's a little bite to it, but it's soft enough that it's still going to be yummy. If you're not sure, just pull out one little piece and taste it. Always a good idea. Alright, so I think that's pretty much in good shape. So I'm going to use a little pot holder. I'm going to use the lid of this pot here. I'm going to drain this, but I'm going to need another pot holder because that handle's hot. You could also drain this through a colander or a sieve, but what you want to do, if you do the method I'm going to do, I'm going to tightly hold the lid on top. And see, I've got a little bit of an edge there. So that's going to let the water drain out. I'm going to come over here. Remember, you got to do this with pot holders, and be careful with this part, because it would be really awkward if you spilled all your pasta in the sink. I'm going to drain it. Go back here, give it just a little fluff like that. If there's a little tiny water in there, that's okay. Like, that'll be just fine, because that'll help loosen the sauce a little bit and make it really stick to the pasta. All right, so I've got the pasta drained, but not completely dry. And now, this part's going to be pretty simple, because all I'm going to do is take my whisk out. Your whisk is not a good tool for this next step. What you want is a rubber spatula, just like this. So I'm going to take a rubber spatula, and now I'm going to put the bowls I'm going to serve it in some of these little cheese cubes we had earlier, so it makes a nice surprise to find. I'm going to take the rest of the cheese cubes, just dump them in the cheese sauce, and I'm not going to wait for those to melt. Now, I'm going to take my cooked pasta, I'm just going to dump it all in the cheese sauce. All of it in like that. There we go. All the pasta in. Now the easiest part. Just give it a little jangly jangle. All I have to do is mix this up and make sure everything is coated in cheese sauce. Don't leave any naked pasta on there. You really want the cheese sauce on everything. That's the point of this dish. And guys, that's pretty much it. Now, if you want a variation, you could actually put this into a casserole dish and put more cheese on top, or a different kind of cheese, or some breadcrumbs, and you could bake it. And if you could put something crunchy on top, some people like that, like fried onions or breadcrumbs or stuff like that. There's all sorts of options. All right, there it is. Now when I look at it, I can see there's the occasional little like cube of cheese in there mixed in. All the pasta and cheese sauce are combined. I'm gonna take my bowl here. I can turn the heat off now. All I'm gonna do is carefully serve it into the bowl. Just like that. And voila, macaroni and cheese. All right, see you guys in class.